Tonight on Y News, the National Capital Region Police Office deploys around 10,000 police personnel ahead of the long weekend holiday. President Rodrigo Duterte orders the institutionalization of 8888 Citizens Complaint Hotline.
The Senate of the Philippines begins discussions on the proposed free higher education in state colleges and universities in the country. President Rodrigo Duterte explains before the Japanese businessmen that his recent dealings with China are all about trade and investment.
President Rodrigo Duterte reassures that the Philippines will not abandon Japan, despite the country's improving ties with China. The public can now dive among the sharks and get up close to many other species as South America's largest aquarium is set to open soon in Rio de Janeiro.
Y News begins now.
UNTV News and Rescue Command Center. This is Y News with Angelo Castro III, Gerry Alcantara, and Darlene Basingan.
Good evening. The National Capital Region Police Office will deploy around 10,000 police this long weekend to assure safety of the public who will be visiting cemeteries across Metro Manila. Brian De Paz will tell us why.
The National Capital Region is on full alert while the public goes on vacation for the long weekend. According to NCRPO Police Office o NCRPO spokesperson, Police Chief Inspector Kimberly Molitas, less than 10,000 police officers will be deployed on October 29 until November 2, particularly at cemeteries, seaports, and airports. A joint task force of the PNP and Armed Forces of the Philippines has been formed.
We'll be implementing this as early as October 29, 2016 until November 2 po. Or if not, until needed, magstay po tayo dun sa areas of responsibilities natin. Mag-deploy po tayo, as you all know, less than 10,000 of our police officers. So, wag po tayong magugulat kung meron po tayong makitang military officers on the ground. Tumutulong po sila para dun sa ating peace and order.
The National Police reminds the public to secure their homes before leaving for vacation and to follow government advisories regarding prohibitions inside cemeteries. In case of emergencies, there are available hotlines.
Yung hotline ng PNP, 2286, kung mayroon po kayong gustong i-report. Yan po ay specific para po sa police concerns po ninyo. Yung ating pong 911 ay para po makatugon yung iba't ibang sakay ng ating gobyerno sa ating mga concerns. At yung ating pong 8888 ay para po diretso yan sa ating office ng ating presidente.
There is also no reported threat from Abu Sayyaf in Metro Manila, according to NCRPO, but they are on alert.
We're not discounting that aspect. We have our EOD, our K9 and our SWAT who will be with us during the UNDAS observation. So nandyan din po sila. We will be, of course, on alert at that time.
Brian De Paz, UNTV News and Rescue, Camp Crame.
For motorists and commuters, expect a more convenient traveling experience along major roads in Metro Manila beginning November 2. John Ano will tell us why.
Starting November 2, the Interagency Council for Traffic or IAC will begin the implementation of expanded no window hours policy and extended hour of number coding scheme. Apart from EDSA, C5, Rojas Boulevard and Alabang Zapote Road, under the expanded no window hours policy, other major roads such as Recto and Quirino Avenues, Araneta Avenue, Aurora Boulevard, Quezon and Commonwealth Avenue, among others, are also covered by the new traffic scheme.
Pagbalik ko nila from their holidays or pagbibisita sa kanilang mahal na nasa sementeryo, baka makalimutan ho nila ay simula na ho yun ng expanded no window.
Along with the expanded coverage of no window hours, the implementation of extended hour for number coding scheme will also begin on the said date. Only provincial buses that have been granted with a special permit from the LTFRB will be exempted from the said policy from November 2 to November 3.
November 2 and 3 ay we have allowed the provincial buses that are recognized by the LTFRB to enter Metro Manila kahit na coding ho sila. Other than that, wala akong exemptions.
Meanwhile, due to expected surge of motorists traveling to the provinces to take advantage of the long weekend, the MMDA has also lifted the number coding scheme from October 31 to November 1. The MMDA will also deploy more than 2,000 of their personnel at different areas of Metro Manila this coming Undas. Some of them will be assigned to manage traffic along the roads, while others are set to be deployed at cemeteries to help in waste management. Other MMDA personnel will be positioned at bus terminals to assist passengers and to provide emergency medical services. The deployment of MMDA personnel is until November 3. Joan Nano, UNTV News and Rescue, Makati City.
Militant groups have formally filed a complaint against PNP members involved in the rally dispersal at the U.S. Embassy office in Manila last week. Monokson will tell us why.
The militant group Sandugo filed a complaint at the Office of the Ombudsman against members of the Philippine National Police involved in the violent rally dispersal in front of the U.S. Embassy in Manila last week. PNP members will face charges of multiple attempted murder, serious physical injuries, unlawful arrest, violation of BP 80 or Public Assembly Act, and obstruction of justice against NCRPO Chief Oscar David Albayalde. According to the lawyer of the victims, it is clear that there is an intent to kill from the members of the PNP.
Kitang-kita naman doon na intentionally na inatrasan niya na napakabilis. Yun ay indication ng intent to kill. So ibig sabihin, may attempted murder yon.
One of the complaints is Pia Makaliing Malayaw, whose foot was run over by the PNP mobile.
Sa unang pag-atras nito, napakadami ng nasagasaan pero ako po ay nakaiwas pa. Doon sa ikalawang pag-abante nito, yun na yung naging sanhi ng pagkadapa ko at tinamaan na nung gulong mismo ng police mobile yung aking paa.
And Nicole Soria, whose head was almost crushed by the vehicle driven by Ko.
Swerte ako na nakaligtas ako pero yung ginawa niya pa rin na kailangan pa rin panagutin.
The militant group says that it's a clear violation of human rights, especially in the case of Colonel Marcelino Pedroso and PO3 Franklin Ko. The militant group insists that they were having a peaceful demonstration. The group will go to the U.S. Embassy again tomorrow to stage another protest against the removal of U.S. soldiers in Mindanao. Monhok Son, UNTV News and Rescue, Office of the Ombudsman.
The Office of the Ombudsman summoned 7 local government units in Mindanao to appear before a fact-finding body. Victor Cosare tells us why.
Republic Act 9003 or the Ecological Solid Waste Management Act was passed into law in 2000. The law prohibits the operation of open dump sites where wastes are not segregated. 50 local government units nationwide are now facing charges before the Ombudsman for violating the said law, 7 of which are from Mindanao, namely Kidapawan, Coronadal, Valencia, Cagayan de Oro, General Luna in Surigao del Norte, Marihatag in Surigao del Sur, and Loreto in Agusan del Sur. Early today, officials from Cagayan de Oro City faced the Environmental Ombudsman team to present their side of the story. If found to be negligent, local officials will face criminal and administrative charges.
Most of them admit that they have violated the law. The only explanation they can put forward is the fact that they don't have sufficient funds, they don't have sufficient resources. But these are not excuses. These are not legitimate excuses because it has been 15 years since the law was passed, and many of the mayors involved here have been mayors for 9 years.
Environment officials from the localities found in violation of RA 9003 will also be subjected to an investigation.
We're also looking at liability of DNR officials, particularly region officials, because they have been here for so long and they have not been able to implement the law.
Deputy Ombudsman for Luzon, Gerard Mosquera, added that aside from the 50 LGUs that are now the subject of their fact-finding investigation, 100 other cities and municipalities will be charged before the Office of the Ombudsman next year. So far, the Ombudsman has sought for the closure of 29 open dump sites nationwide. Victor Cosare, UNTV News and Rescue, Davao City.
Different government and non-government organizations are now looking into creating a Philippine humanitarian standard guideline. Grace Casson will tell us why.
Different guidelines in disaster preparedness and response by government and non-governmental organizations are now being merged. This aims to develop a Philippine humanitarian standard guideline for the government to have a definitive action plan during calamities.
Maraming guidelines na hindi talaga fully nabababa or naiintindihan ng implementor, which is the local government unit.
The Department of Social Welfare and Development or DSWD admits that despite having its own guidelines, there are still lapses in distributing relief goods.
May mga reklamo pa rin dumarating, hindi naabutan, parang hindi pareho yung naibigay sa kanila. Mabibigyan ba lahat?
G1 Eastern Samar Welfare Officer Zenaida Cunanan says based on her personal experience, there was no proper coordination when Typhoon Yolanda hit their area. The relief goods arrived in G1 3 days after the typhoon.
Hindi coordinated yung efforts at saka hindi mo pa alam kung ano yung talaga yung mga pangailangan na dapat sana ibibigay pa sa tao.
The group targets to finish the guidelines on Philippine humanitarian standards within a year before submitting it to the President. Grace Casson, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
President Rodrigo Duterte orders the institutionalization of the 888 Citizens Complaint Hotline. Rosalie Cos tells us why.
Through Executive Order Number 6, President Rodrigo Duterte orders the hotline number 8888 to be institutionalized as the Citizens Complaint Hotline number. Through this, anyone can report their complaints and grievances on acts of red tape and corruption by any national government agency, government-owned or controlled corporation, and government financial institution. The 8888 Citizens Complaint Center is under the direction and supervision of the Cabinet Secretary June Evasco and in coordination with Office of the Special Assistant to the President Bongo. It will operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with live agents ready to answer calls through the telephone hotline facility. Aside from the telephone hotline, the complaint center shall also provide other communication channels such as text messaging, electronic mail, website, and social media. Yesterday, President Duterte told the Filipino community in Japan of his desire to eradicate corruption in government. He also plans on broadcasting the citizens' complaints through the government television station.
Ngayon, sa Pilipinas, di may PTV4 tayo. After the news, sa umaga, I will require mga 1 hour. Text lang kayo. Text mo lang, 888 man yan, text. Dito sa, if you want to name the officer, fine. Sabi mo, ito si Alejandro Martinez, empleyado dito, hiningian ako ng ganon. Lalabas yan sa screen. So, the people of the Philippines would know. Lahat yan, police, military, custom, lahat. Ngayon, in fairness and in obedience to the rule of the right to be heard, bigyan ko siyang panahon. Sagutin rin niya doon sa text. Limited to few sentences. Hindi po totoo yan.
Each complaint lodged through the communication channels shall have concrete and specific actions within 3 days by the concerned government agency. Rosalie Cos, UNTV News and Rescue, Malacanang.
Motorists traveling along Makati area are experiencing moderate to heavy traffic. Joan Nano is in Quezon Avenue to tell us why live. Go ahead, John.
Good evening, Darlene. We are now right here near in Delta Quezon Avenue to know the latest traffic update in some major roads within Metro Manila. Let's take a look at the traffic situation. Here in Quezon Avenue, for those vehicles going along España, motorists will experience moderate movement of vehicles. Moderate traffic will start from Roosevelt going to Araneta Avenue and Santo Domingo area. While for those who are passing along the eastbound area, for those vehicles exiting here in Quezon Avenue, or for those who are traversing to Commonwealth Avenue, will experience heavy traffic as of this moment. Let's take a look at some of our live traffic points. First in EDSA Balintawak. Motorists along the northbound area, for those who are coming from Muñoz going to Balintawak, will experience light to moderate traffic as of this moment. While light traffic will be experienced for those who are in the southbound area from Balintawak going to Muñoz. Let's proceed in EDSA Guadalupe. Moderate to heavy traffic is now being experienced by the travelers coming from Guadalupe going to Shaw Boulevard. While for those who are on the opposite side of the lane, for vehicles coming from Orense going to Ayala Makati, will experience heavy traffic as of this time. Meanwhile, in España Blumentritt, moderate traffic is now being experienced for the motorists going to UST along España, while moderate traffic as well is being experienced for those who are going to Welcome Rotunda. Once again, Darlene, we would like to remind all the motorists out there that since tomorrow is Thursday and number coding scheme is still being implemented, all vehicles with plate numbers ending in 7 and 8 is strictly prohibited in all major roads within Metro Manila from 7 o'clock in the morning until 7 o'clock in the evening. But on Monday, October 31 and Tuesday, November 1, since it's holiday, the Metro Manila Development Authority has already lifted the implementation of number coding scheme. And that was today's traffic update. Back to you, Darlene.
Thank you, Joan. And that's Joan Nano reporting live from EDSA Quezon Avenue.
Next in Y News. The Senate of the Philippines begins discussions on the proposed free higher education in state colleges and universities in the country.
President Rodrigo Duterte explains before the Japanese businessmen that his recent dealings with China are all about trade and investment.
President Rodrigo Duterte reassures that the Philippines will not abandon Japan, despite the country's improving ties with China.
Y News will be right back. The Cooperative Development Authority expresses fears that the passage of rationalization of fiscal incentives bill may kill the cooperative sector. Nel Maribuhok will tell us why.
The chairman of the Cooperative Development Authority stated their positions on the passage of the rationalization of fiscal incentives bill during the hearing of the House Committee on Ways and Means. According to CDA Chairman Orlando Ravanera, as lead agency mandated to help the cooperative sector in the country, they fear the possible repealing of provisions that provide tax exemptions to cooperatives.
Mr. Chairman, repealing the tax privileges would mean the death of about 20,000 cooperatives in this country. As you know, we have about 25,000 cooperatives with some 14 million members.
The provision of tax exemptions on cooperatives is based on Republic Act number 9520 that a cooperative may be exempted from income tax, value-added tax, or excise tax and others. The rationalization of fiscal incentives bill aims to encourage more investments in the country by reforming the tax incentives given by the government. These include the possible amendment of some existing laws regarding tax incentives. According to Rabanera, only 3,000 cooperatives enjoy tax exemptions.
Only 3,000 were given certificate of tax exemption. Nagtataka nga po kami, dapat it is in the law that it should be automatic. Katulad po ng simbahan, church. They're also, are they being required to submit on that? No.
According to Deputy Minority Leader Congressman Eugene De Vera, no particular provisions of the bill stated the removal of tax exemptions.
I think the purpose of this bill is really to codify the all taxes, all tax incentives given to every stakeholder.
Nel Maribuhok, UNTV News and Rescue, House of Representatives.
The Department of Education is strictly monitoring cases of bullying in schools following a stabbing incident of a grade 6 pupil in Davao City. Aiko Miguel will tell us why.
Mrs. Johaira Olareta was in anguish after her son was declared dead on arrival due to a stab in the head.
Justisya gyud nga akong gusto mahitabo kay ang gikuha niya sa akong anak kinabuhi good na. Grabe among pag-atiman palangga kay na namo akong anak niya gikuan lang niya patay ba. Nagpaila mi kaso para sa iya.
John Mark Olareta is a grade 6 pupil who was stabbed in the head last Friday by his schoolmates in front of F. Bangoy Elementary School in Davao City. Consequently, the Department of Education reminds school administrations to strictly monitor cases of bullying.
To remind all the participants in the process of education, and that includes community, that there is such a policy and that we don't treat children like criminals. There are existing laws which protect the child, whatever a child does, because of course we have to understand their situation. So mayroon tayong policy on bullying, there is a procedure, it is prohibited.
According to Secretary Leonor Briones, this case is alarming and they will make sure it will not happen again.
I actually have received the reports already, and I will take time to read them. And as for the child who also destroyed his own life, that child has to be rehabilitated.
She adds it is not just the life of the victim that was destroyed, but also those of the two young suspects.
In this case of a child taking the life of another child, we did not lose only one life, we have lost two lives. The kid who did it and the child who is the victim. So we have lost one, we have to save the other remaining child.
Meanwhile, the bag inspection among students in the said school is now stricter.
So mas gistrikto na mo ang pag-inspect sa mga bags sa guard.
The two students involved in the incident are now in the custody of DSWD. Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue, Department of Education.
A senator is confident that bills seeking to provide free education in state universities and colleges in the country will flourish in the Senate. Joyce Balancho will tell us why.
Senate Education Committee Chair Senator Bam Aquino is optimistic that the Senate will approve the passage of the measure that seeks to provide free education in state universities and colleges all over the country. In the hearing earlier, the committee discussed 6 proposed bills filed by Senators Sherwin Gatchalian, J.V. Ejercito, Ralph Recto, Kiko Pangilinan, Sonny Angara, and the committee chair himself, Senator Bam Aquino, all aiming towards helping Filipino students who cannot afford tertiary education.
Marami sa amin ang talagang tinutulak ito. In fact, right now, I think there's already 6, almost 7 bills, no? So, kumbaga, konti na lang, pasado na yan. So, we're very, very confident that we can pass this at some point. Yung pinag-uusapan na lang kung ano yung methodology, kung ano yung paraan.
The committee discussed various proposals including targeting of specific courses or limiting the beneficiaries to students from the bottom 40% or limiting the beneficiaries to students from the bottom 40%
or those who can hardly pay their tuition. Some versions, however, like that of Senator Aquino, propose waiving of tuition of all students in the state universities and colleges or SUCs. For this, the government might need funds totaling to 9 billion pesos, as this equates to the amount of tuition collected by SUCs annually. But if the law will also mandate the government to shoulder even the living allowance, miscellaneous and other expenses apart from tuition, the needed funding might possibly reach 250 billion pesos.
So this will be in the billions, no? But I think it's worth it. Palagay ko worth it naman yun na matulungan yung mga kabataan natin na makatapos ng kolehiyo. Again, your budget, the amount of money you put in, that's determined by your priority. So kung priority natin yung edukasyon, dapat pondohan natin yan.
For his part, Committee Vice Chair Senator Sherwin Gatchalian also agrees in the waiving of tuition fees in all SUCs.
Pag titignan mo doon sa enrollment, based on my analysis, almost 80% doon ay poor and near poor. Ibig sabihin, mahirap din sila. No? So, 20% lang talaga yung mga sasabihin na nating middle class and upper. No? So, I'm pabor ako sa free higher education kasi 80% mako-cover mo na kaagad. Maliit lang naman hindi mako-cover.
The committee will proceed to the technical working groups in the coming weeks, wherein the details of the bills will be discussed even further. Joyce Balancho, UNTV News and Rescue, Senate of the Philippines.
Former Defense Minister and now Senator Juan Ponce Enrile believes that President Rodrigo Duterte's plan to abrogate the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement or EDCA should be studied carefully. Roderick Mendoza tells us why.
President Rodrigo Duterte has hinted that he will abrogate the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement which the Philippines signed with the United States. But even this early, some are already opposing his plan. Former Defense Minister and former Senator Juan Ponce Enrile says Duterte can end the military alliance but it should be studied carefully.
Pwede yan, pero ang question, kaya ba natin? Ano ang kapalit? Dahil wala tayong kagamitan para pangalagaan ang ating seguridad ngayon .
Another former lawmaker says the sentiments of the people should also be considered, such as the opposition of the residents of Zamboanga when American troops were driven out of their city.
No less than the LGU, the Zamboanga city government, objected to that because they said, no, we want them here. Because we feel more secure with them present because they help in improving our fight against the Abu Sayyaf.
Goles and Enrile say that Duterte should also consider the fact that as of now, we don't have the capability to defend our territory. They further argue that making friends with China is not a guarantee that it will no longer be a threat to the Philippines.
We must always consider China as a potential intruder into our country. Not because they want to hurt us, but because they'll probably need our resources, they probably need our market.
The two also say building closer ties with China is not bad, but we should not break good relations with other countries such as the United States. They add that ultimately, our relationship with other countries should be dictated by our national interest. Roderick Mendoza, UNTV News and Rescue, Manila.
President Rodrigo Duterte reassures that the Philippines will not abandon Japan despite the former's improving ties with China. March Navarro tells us why.
President Rodrigo Duterte seeks to reassure Japan in order to strengthen strategic partnership in economy and maritime security.
But I give you my word today that we will not abandon Japan in our partnership and security matters, driven by the common belief that our conflicts and problems with other nations must be resolved peacefully in accordance with international law and the UNCLOS and everything.
Japan is known to have close ties with the United States while building closer security relations with the Philippines and other Southeast Asian countries as a counterweight to a rising China.
It will also be a partner in the prayer of maritime safety maritime security in the China Sea, and that we would like to avoid at all costs violence, because the law says that we have to resolve it peacefully.
President Duterte has threatened to abrogate defense agreements with the United States several times over the past 2 months, but has yet to take any concrete action beyond canceling some minor Navy patrol exercises. In line with this, Foreign Affairs Secretary Perfecto Yasay explains that the Philippines will respect treaty obligations with the U.S. as long as mutual interests converge.
There is no reason at this time to terminate our agreements, because our national interests still continue to converge.
Regarding the President's remarks about renouncing ties with the United States, the Secretary clarifies that the President wanted to reassess the objectives of the two countries' joint military exercises.
And if the President sees that the objectives of these joint exercises will not be met, then he has the prerogative to disagree with the recommendation. But it does not mean that we are reneging or breaching our commitment under the Mutual Defense Agreement.
Marge Navarro, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
President Rodrigo Duterte makes it clear before the Japanese business community that there wasn't any discussion about positioning of troops during his visit to China. Danny Tixon tells us why.
President Rodrigo Duterte assures Japan that his recent visit to China was all about economics.
You know, I went to China for a visit, and I would like to assure you that all there was economics. We did not talk about arms. We did not talk about stationing of troops. We do not. We avoided talking about alliances, military or otherwise.
This was his statement during a forum with Japanese and Filipino businessmen here in Tokyo this morning. He suggested that defense ties and long-time military alliance with the United States may be overhauled and insisted on maintaining an independent foreign policy.
I have declared that I will pursue an independent foreign policy. I want, maybe in the next 2 years, my country freed of the presence of foreign military troops. I want them out. And if I have to revise or abrogate agreements, executive agreements, I will. This will be the last maneuver, war games between the United States and the Philippines military.
Duterte's visit to Japan comes amid jitters about his foreign policy objectives after weeks of verbal attacks against longtime ally, the United States, and overtures towards China. The president is in Japan for his 3-day official visit.
President Duterte is scheduled to meet Emperor Akihito tomorrow and will hold talks with the President of Japan, International Cooperation Agency President, at some point during the trip. Danny Tixon, UNTV News and Rescue, Tokyo, Japan.
Coming up, chaos erupts as independence activists fight the ban to barge into the legislative chamber.
France starts demolishing a Calais migrant camp, leaving thousands of refugees in reception centers.
The public can now have a one-of-a-kind diving experience as South America's largest aquarium is set to open soon in Rio de Janeiro.
More from Y News after this break. The Intertropical Convergence Zone is continuously affecting Mindanao. This region, including Palawan, will experience cloudy skies with light to moderate rains. Isolated rain showers and thunderstorms will prevail over Metro Manila and the rest of the country. UNTV and its partner in public service, the Members Church of God International, hosted a blood donation drive in Laguna for the third time this year. Jun Soria will tell us why.
For the third time this year, UNTV and its partner in public service, Members Church of God International, has hosted a blood donation drive in Laguna to donate bags of blood to the Philippine Blood Center or PBC. PBC admits that the country is very much in need of blood annually. This is due to the rising number of sick people, such as dengue patients who need blood transfusion.
Kasi kulang po talaga ang supply ng dugo. Kasi po may mga tao po, syempre iba natatakot mag-donate. Na may mga iniisip dyan na baka makakasama pa sa kalusugan nila. Wag po sana kayo matakot. Maganda po ito sa ating pangangatawan.
The bloodletting activity in San Pedro, Laguna have produced almost 50 bags of blood.
Sa mga natutunan po namin kay Brad Eddie po. Kaya yun, bilang sa amin din, benefit po din sa amin, parang kung sa mga sasakyan ay may change oil, sa amin po may change blood. Para sa ganun, makaka-produce ulit ng katawan namin ng panibagong tugo.
Kada nag-donate ako, parang akagad sa pakiramdam. Mag-donate po tayo para po makatulong din po tayo sa iba na nangangailangan.
The Philippine Blood Center has expressed its gratitude toward UNTV and MCGI for their continued support.
Pasalamat po sa inyo lahat ng mga miyembro ng ating dating daan na walang sawa pong tumutulong sa amin sa pamamagitan po ng pagdodonate ng inyong dugo kada 3 buwan. Wag po sana kayo magsawa na magtulong. Marami pong salamat sa lahat.
Every 3 months, Members Church of God International hosts a blood donation drive in different parts of Laguna. Jun Suriao for Serbisyong Kasangbahay.
Evacuees in recaptured towns of Iraq receive relief assistance but need decent shelter even more. Bong Duqueza will tell us why.
The first international aid convoy for the people of Mosul arrived in northern Iraq's Erbil on Tuesday. A team of staff and volunteers unloaded over 530 tons of donations from the convoy's 20 trucks of tents, blankets, food and clothing, which are very crucial supplies as winter fast approaches. The Turkish Red Crescent, who are behind the project, says they will coordinate with the local partners and do the best they can to deliver the aid to those most urgently in need, with Islamic State still present in the region. Meanwhile, hundreds of Iraqis fled their homes in the recently captured village of Topsaya near Mosul.
اليوم وبعد التوكل على الله تم نقل العوائل التي كانت تسكن قرية طوبزاوة التابعة لناحية بعشيقة بعد أن تم تحريرها من قبل القوات الأمنية من قبل قوات جهاز مكافحة الإرهاب وقوات البيشمركة البطلة.
The displaced people were met by Iraqi armed forces to transport them to a newly established camp in Gazer, west of Erbil.
احنا تقريبا 100 بيت. ما هذا البيت ولا واحد صاغلم، كله تفلش. كله اللي ضرب هاون، اللي ضرب قاذفة، اللي ضرب هذا اللي اسمه مدفع، مدافع، ماكو، ما نقدر نفتح الباب.
The army says about 90 Islamic State-held villages and towns around Mosul had been retaken so far into the offensive. But thousands of people are expected to flee in the coming days. Bong Duquesa, UNTV News and Rescue, Middle East.
Thousands of refugees are left with no choice but to stay in reception centers in France. June Garin tells us why.
The French government has started dismantling the migrant camp in Calais on Tuesday afternoon here in France, with over 4,000 migrants already having left for reception centers across the country. Under police surveillance, some 20 workers cleared away over 10 tents and cabins within the so-called jungle after 3 hours of work.
aujourd'hui, c'est la phase où nous entrons sur le terrain, où on commence à enlever tous les déchets. Vous savez, 4000 personnes qui sont parties, ça laisse des déchets derrière eux. Donc c'est normal qu'on nettoie, qu'on enlève les déchets. Puis ça aide aussi ceux qui sont encore hésitants à prendre leurs décisions. Ça participe à leur réflexion de se dire maintenant il faut vraiment tourner la page. Le camp de la Lande, c'est fini. Il faut que j'imagine autre chose. Et pourquoi pas faire confiance à l'État et venir dans ces logements que nous leur proposons, ces abris entourés par des associatifs. Et pourquoi pas demander l'asile en France. C'est en tout cas ce que nous les encourageons à faire.
Some 9,000 migrants had been living in the camp in Calais, located at the French end of the Channel Tunnel, with many having hoped to make their way into Britain for a better life. During the evacuation, some activists were instigating some migrants to stay in Calais. As a precaution, the local government beefed up police support for the very first day of the tear-down operation to deal with any emergencies.
On a une inquiétude assez importante sur le déclenchement des opérations des activistes qui sont nombreux sur le périmètre, qui sont aujourd'hui en observation et peut-être en recherche de lieux pour pouvoir essayer de monter des opérations qui viendraient troubler l'ordre public.
The local government has also built up a ring encircling the migrant camp to prevent unauthorized people entering the area. The dismantling of the jungle is expected to take about a week, with more than 1,200 police present during the whole process. June Garin, UNTV News and Rescue, Paris, France.
Hong Kong's legislature descended into chaos this afternoon as two pro-independence lawmakers defied a barring order. Yau Wai-ching and Baguio Leung barged into the chamber as Democrats formed a human chain around them, forcing the session to be adjourned. The president of the Chinese-ruled city's legislative council delayed yesterday the swearing-in of the two lawmakers over language and a banner that was deemed derogatory to China. They were temporarily banned from attending meetings following weeks of pressure from factions loyal to Beijing.
今日我哋呢場仗輸咗嘅話，成個金鐘淪陷埋，我哋成個憲制就正式玩完，所以我哋冇退路，我哋一定要打贏。
Investigation is underway on a theme park tragedy in Gold Coast, Australia that killed 4 and injured 2 children. Kate Alba will tell us why.
Forensic police were examining a river rapid ride at Australia's biggest theme park today after 4 people were killed when it apparently malfunctioned and they were trapped beneath an upturned raft. People begin to arrive paying floral tributes for the victims. Tuesday tragedy at the Thunder River Rapid Ride at Dreamworld on the Gold Coast in the state of Queensland ranks among the world's deadliest theme park accidents.
It's just such a sad incident. We're just thinking of the family today.
So everyone's in shock really about what's happened.
Police said the victims were 2 men aged 33 and 38 and 2 women aged 32 and 42. All lived in Australia. The New Zealand government confirmed one was a New Zealand citizen. 2 children on the ride are being treated for injuries in hospital. Police have not yet confirmed the relationship of the hospitalized children to any of the adults. Reports say a brother and a sister are among the fatalities. According to Queensland Assistant Police Commissioner Brian Codd, a collision between 2 rafts flipped one, throwing free 2 girls aged 10 and 13 and trapped 4 adults beneath it.
In terms of how they escaped, maybe through the providence of God or somebody, but it seems from what I've seen, almost a miracle that anybody came out of that. If we're going to be thankful for anything, I'm thankful for that.
Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull assures a thorough investigation on the tragedy.
Theme parks are a place for family fun and happiness, not tragedy. This is a very, very sad and tragic event. Our thoughts and prayers are with the families of those who lost their lives. It is a very sad day, and we trust that there will be a thorough investigation of the causes of this accident over the days that follow.
The ride, meant to simulate going over River Rapid, is described by Dreamworld as a moderate thrill attraction for those older than 2. The theme park will remain closed indefinitely. Kate Alba, UNTV News and Rescue, Brisbane, Australia.
Japan's Toyota Motor Corporation says it is recalling a total of about 5.8 million cars at home and abroad over potentially faulty airbag inflators made by Takata Corporation. The company says the recall covers models such as the Corolla and the Vitz subcompact hatchback marketed overseas as the Yaris, produced between May 2000 and November 2001. In April 2006 and December 2014. The recall affects about 1.16 million vehicles sold in Japan, about 820,000 cars sold in China, and around 1.47 million cars in the European market.
The public can now dive among sharks and get up close to many other species in Rio de Janeiro. Dave Tira will tell us why.
Rio de Janeiro prepares for the opening of Latin America's largest aquarium, where some 8,000 animals, representing 350 species, will be on display. The 72,128-foot structure of the Aquarium Marino do Rio de Janeiro spans 6 floors of a former warehouse in the city's recently regenerated Port District and will be open officially on November 9. O Recinto Oceanico e de Mergulho, or the Oceanic and Diving Enclosure, will be the largest tank holding up to 3.3 million liters of water and going to a depth of 7 meters that would let visitors be able to dive among sharks and get up close to many other marine species.
A gente fica assim embaixo, dentro desse túnel, e parece que a gente está mergulhando junto com eles, dentro do oceano mesmo. Muito bom, muito legal ter isso aqui no Rio, na minha cidade, e eu vou vir toda hora agora, né?
The aquarium directors partner with the Research Center of Marine Biology at UFRJ, Rio's Federal University. Research will take place on site as well as some captive breeding programs. Many of the fish at the aquarium will be caught in Rio's polluted Guanabara Bay, quarantined for observation, and then moved to their new tanks, with the intention of returning endangered species to Brazilian waters.
Eu acho que o Rio de Janeiro muito merecia um aquário desse porte. Eu acho que, além disso, a gente tem a oportunidade de oferecer para pesquisa, para os biólogos, um equipamento verdadeiramente possível de fazer ciência, de fazer pesquisa.
The aquarium has been financed entirely by the private sector, with the partner companies and sponsors providing the total of 90 million Brazilian reais or $29 million. Visitors will be charged a 40 reals or $13 entrance fee, while schools and staff will enter for free. Dave Tirao, UNTV News and Rescue, Brazil.
Angelique Kerber emerges victorious at the WTA Finals. Meanwhile, the Spanish Football Federation gets fined by FIFA. Aaron Romero tells us why.
FIFA have fined Spain's Football Federation, or RFEF, for breaking rules governing the international transfer and registration of minors by allowing Atletico and Real Madrid to sign underage players from other countries. The Spanish Football Federation is led by Angel Maria Villar, a FIFA vice president. Meanwhile, Olympic Council of Ireland Vice President John Delaney resigns, becoming the first board member to quit since its chief, Pat Hickey, was charged in Brazil over an alleged scheme to sell Olympic tickets illegally. Delaney, head of the Football Association of Ireland, said last month that he had no role or involvement in the OCI's handling of ticketing arrangements. Acting OCI President Willie O'Brien said in a statement that he accepted with regret Delaney's resignation. And in tennis, Angelique Kerber claims her second straight win at the WTA Finals with a 6-4, 6-2 victory against Simona Halep. The world number 1 books a spot in the semifinals of the Elite 8-woman event. Aaron Romero, UNTV News and Rescue, New York.
The NHA Builders is determined to win their 3 remaining games at the UNTV Cup this season. Bernard Dadis tells us why.
Pag-iigihan pa namin yung next game namin. Kailangan namin manalo.
The NHA Builders, led by head coach former Philippine Basketball Association G-Man Silverio Bennett Pala III, is now in a must-win situation in the first-round eliminations of the UNTV Cup Season 5. It can be recalled that out of 3 games, they have lost 2. The match against the Judiciary Magis on September 18 and another versus the PNP Responders on September 28.
Actually, opening jitters lang yun nagkakanya-kanya But now, medyo nag-blend na sila. Kasi kulang nga kami sa practice and pangalawa, may mga bago kaming players, hindi pa kilala yung mga laro. Pero ngayon, medyo nagkakaamuyan na sila kung paano maglaro isa't isa.
The team only won against the HOR Solons at last Sunday's game. For this, the team must be able to win its remaining games to be able to advance to the next round. That is why the Builders is determined to topple the GSI Spirits, the DOJ Justice Boosters, and the leading team BOC Transformers when they step again on the UNTV Cup hardcourt. Coach Bennett is hopeful that his side will be able to enter the second round eliminations of the league this season.
And we hope to win. Kailangan namin manalo kundi ma-out kami. We have to play as a family. Yung plays namin, kailangan ma-execute namin yung mga plays namin. And most of all, kailangan ko ng intensity and aggressiveness para manalo kami.
Watch out for the matchup between the NHA Builders and the GSI Spirits this Sunday, October 30, 2016 at the Pasig City Sports Center, to be aired live on UNTV 37 with live streaming via untvweb.com. Bernard Daddies for UNTV Cup Season 5.
Those are the reasons behind the news. October 26, 2016. I'm Angelo Castro III.
Reasons we delivered to you as they unfold. I'm Gerry Alcantara.
And I'm Darlene Basingan, because we need to know.
We will always ask why. Thank you for watching Y News.